Hello, and welcome to the Badger Talks podcast, the podcast that shares interviews with experts from the University of Wisconsin-Madison community about their work, research, and a little bit about what they're like as people, too. I'm your host, Buzz Kemper. Today, we're talking about a unique alliance between the UW-Madison and the village of Waunakee, and I'm happy to have as my guests Kylie West, Executive Assistant for the village of Waunakee, and Gavin Luter, Managing Director at UniverCity Alliance, to talk about the upcoming Ho-Chunk Traveling Museum project. Kylie and Gavin, thank you so much for being here and talking about this. You've got a partnership between Waunakee and UniverCity Alliance, and I want to spell that because it's not what you think. It's UNIVER capital CITY. Correct?
That's right. That's right. And just to be clear, it is the village of Waunakee.
The village of Waunakee,
not the city of Waunakee.
I don't want either the village or the city to come after me and yell at me for getting that wrong. That is terrific. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you tell me, first of all, and either one of you can start, but before we get into the Ho-Chunk traveling exhibit project, I want to just talk about how the partnership between the two of you started. And maybe Gavin, let's start with you, because what is UniverCity Alliance and how do you say it?
I say it as UniverCity Alliance.
Great.
I just put the emphasis on city.
Okay, terrific.
But of course, people think, does that mean you only work with cities? Well, of course not. We also work with villages and
yes.
towns and counties as
All
well.
Right. So are you going to change your name now to Univer Village?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think Jerry Duchesne at the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is like, well, I guess Univer City, County, village doesn't sound as sexy maybe as UniverCity.
Yeah.
And universal local government also doesn't really sound nice. So we just stuck with UniverCity, and then we tell other people we work with all local governments.
Terrific.
So yeah, UniverCity Alliance. So to answer your question, the UniverCity Alliance is essentially a network of people on campus at UW-Madison who feel like cities, counties, towns, and villages probably could be benefiting from leveraging the resources and expertise and knowledge that we have on campus. And it's also a growing course of people who are concerned about how cities, counties, towns, and villages just don't always have the capacity and bandwidth to deal with what they need, especially as they grow and expand and deal with different challenges, whether it's climate change or, inclusiveness and welcoming. How do you create a welcoming community? Or we want to do a new project and we need some help on that. So we know that these communities, as they grow, they experience challenges. And we have a lot of people on campus who are interested in making their stuff relevant to the real world. And so we wanted to create a network of people who care about these issues. And we created the UniverCity Alliance. So we have representation from almost all schools and colleges. We created the UniverCity program. And that essentially is a mechanism where any local government across the state of Wisconsin can basically apply and say, hey, we want some assistance from UW-Madison. We want a partnership. The idea being that UW-Madison, where do you enter UW-Madison? How do you start a partnership with UW-Madison? It's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Hard to know where to knock on the door.
Right.
So we are trying to be the front door for local governments to tap into the resources, knowledge, expertise, and just kind of excitement that I think that the university has to offer, and make sure that the partnership can be successful. So that's who we are, and that's what we do.
Terrific. Yeah, no, that's very clarifying, because it makes sense, because a lot of people think that, I want to do something with the university, but they see the university as just this bureaucratic Mount Everest,
Exactly.
and so which committee do I talk to? And maybe they should form a committee to tell me what committee I should talk to. And right. So you are the front door. People can come to you and say, I want to do X. I want to create a partnership with the university, and then you guys magically make it happen.
Yeah,
although I imagine it's not magic.
It's not exactly magic. It is a structured 2 to 3 year engagement that we have with a community partner. Usually they want something really concrete from this. we have data we want analyzed. We want best practice reports. Can you give us a plan for a community? Give us some site designs.
Yeah.
So usually there are very concrete things that they want and need from the partnership. And so we create a 2 to 3 year engagement that allows them to say what they need. We ask questions to clarify. We get them to the right people. We make sure that the deliverables are created. We hand over those deliverables and then say, hey, is there anything else that you need? And we are here to talk about Waunakee, who said, yes, there actually is more stuff that we need.
Kylie, that brings us to you. So they are the front door, and you apparently rang the doorbell. And what brought the village of Waunakee to UniverCity Alliance, and how did the partnership begin, and what was the motivation?
Yeah, so I work with our village administrator, Todd Schmidt, and Todd has a real passion for creating connections in our community and really focusing on what our community is about, where it came from, and how it started. So the Ho Chunk project, he connected with Gavin in UniverCity. I'm sure he learned about it through one of the many things that he attended. Mm-hmm. And we ended up doing 8, I think, different projects with the UniverCity year. One of those was really focused on the Ho Chunk Nation and their origins in Waunakee, and how we can incorporate that now and how we can teach our community about that right now. Mm-hmm. And it's been a really awesome project to work on. We've learned things that we never would have learned. Our high school has since taken away the mascot that was the Indian shooting a bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. We have a land acknowledgement that's up in our village and on every village board agenda. Mm-hmm. So it's been a lot of fun seeing those things come to life. And over the course of that 2-year partnership, we have done a number of things that not only showcase what the Ho Chunk Nation means to the village of Waunakee, but also why it's important to share that information now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think as we, it's kind of fun to engage in a little bit of reflection on our partnership, because I think as we've reflected on our partnership, things that I've heard Kylie and Todd talk about is, during the summer of 2020, it was a really rough summer for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people kind of woke up and realized, wow, we need to understand, is our community a welcoming place? We don't really understand the history of our community. Why is our community the way that it is? It is not known as the most diverse place in the world. And so I think Todd and Kylie came to me and said, we don't want that to be a reputation. We want to be a welcoming place to live. Mm-hmm. We do have some things that make us unique, and we do think we have diversity among us, but we also have a lot to learn, and we want to demystify where we've come from. We don't know where exactly we came from. We want to make sure that we are welcoming, and they had already, to their credit, already been talking about things like housing policy. Is our housing policy the most welcoming that it could be to have all different kinds of housing units? They were engaging in a housing study with the extension office here in Dane County. So they already started on that journey, and they said, hey, could UniverCity help us figure out how to make our community more welcoming? How might we explore the roots of where we came from, who was here before us? Mm-hmm. And I think, to their credit, they came with a very clear list of, can we do an equity audit for ordinances? Can we do an equity audit for hiring and making sure that we're hiring the right people? Can we demystify the kind of neural diversity that we have? And we feel like, mental health is something that a lot of people struggle with, mental health crises. How do we kind of normalize that and make sure people are okay with it? How do we understand our roots with the Ho Chunk Nation as the people that were here before us? We know a lot of people come from Waunakee to go to the University of Wisconsin. So there are a lot of connections. Actually, Todd Schmidt's wife works at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so does our village. Our village president is actually Kristen Runge at the extension. So
okay.
Yeah. So but I think that even speaks to, even though Todd knows somebody intimately, his wife, and works at the University of Wisconsin, I still think it speaks to how difficult it is to figure out how a partnership works.
Do you ever seek out partnerships, or is it people coming to you exclusively?
Well, the way that Todd Schmidt knew about our partnership is because we have been at meetings with local government officials, and I kind of kept bugging him. I was like, hey, Todd, do you want to work with us? Do you want to work with us?
Yeah.
And Todd was like, well, it's got to be the right set of projects. And then after the 2020 events happened, he said, I think there's a time now.
Okay.
So it's not like we just sit back and say, okay, we're open and just wait for people to
hang
come
a
to
shingle
us.
out and wait for people to knock. You brought up the land acknowledgments, and it just so happens I do the welcoming announcements for programs by Madison Ballet and the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra. So I'm the guy who says, welcome, and please turn off your cell phone.
That's how I knew your voice.
Yeah, right. But they have fairly recently added these land acknowledgments. And so there is obviously an increased awareness of the history of this land and the people who came before us, the native population. So what got the idea of the Ho-Chunk traveling, what is it called? The Ho-Chunk traveling exhibit?
Traveling museum exhibit.
Traveling
yes.
museum, thank you. What was the impetus for that?
So throughout our time working with UniverCity and the different things we've done, we did a lot of things to acknowledge the Ho-Chunk Nation.
Right.
We have a land acknowledgement. We've added the Great Seal of the Nation to our only Waunakee in the world welcome signs at the four entrances to the villages. We have done, they kicked off their dugout canoe journey at 6 Mile Creek because it's the start of the chain of lakes to kind of really signify that friendship. But we hadn't really done anything tangible to help the Ho-Chunk Nation that they could use after our partnership. We had done a lot of things to acknowledge that they were there, that they belonged there, that this was their land, but we hadn't given so much back that they could continue to use. So the idea behind the exhibit was to not only raise awareness in our community, because the hope is that we will kick this off at our Waunakee Public Library this fall in November for the start of Native American Heritage Month. And then from there, it'll travel to different libraries throughout the system in Dane County after that to just kind of share that. And then when we're done, that exhibit will then be given to the Ho-Chunk Nation. Josie Lee is the director of the Ho-Chunk Nation Museum and Cultural Center. So we'll gift this to them when it's finished being on display around Dane County, and then they'll be able to have something tangible that they can loan out to other places outside of the county, continue to learn, continue to share that information with other people. And that was really important for us to be able to give something back, not just a gift, because we've done gifting ceremonies and made things that they might be able to put on display for themselves, but not that they can continue to educate others with.
What do people have to look forward to? People who want to go to the public library and see this traveling museum, what can they look forward to seeing? How will this look, and what kind of objects and stories, or what can people expect?
So we're still in the planning phases, but the hope is that it's going to be a combination of things. Some text where people can read about the topics that we choose to have. We're working with Josie to kind of really get what topics they want shared, because we can continue to share the same things over and over, but that might not be what they want shared, and that the nation wants shared. So we're hoping to have it be text, some tangible items. Like we'll get some replicas created, hopefully by Native Ho-Chunk Nation artists. And we're also looking at maybe some things that reach to the younger generation, such as a kit that could be loaned out at the library that has arts and crafts or kids books or things that also relate to the chosen topic, so that it really can touch all generations and maybe be utilized for programming at those libraries as well.
Yeah. And will this traveling museum, will it be, like, how geographically specific will it be? Is this going to relate specifically to the Ho-Chunk peoples of this area, the Waunakee area, or is it going to have more of a general relationship to the entire state? How will that work, if that's even answerable?
Yeah, I know that we would like to have Waunakee kind of included within that, but we want it to be a broader kind of geographical area of the state, so that it isn't just, the people up north might be like, why do we want to talk about Waunakee? We want to make sure that it is usable outside of just this small area and make as big of an impact as it can.
I think we are still in the ideation phase, and I think that's something that I want the listeners to really hear and take this in, is that it's one thing to have a group of people and say, this is what we think that the Ho-Chunk is important to tell about the Ho-Chunk story. It's another thing to be working in partnership with the Ho-Chunk Nation. And you know what? Yeah, it takes a little bit longer. It takes more patience. Right. And I think sometimes it doesn't always operate on the timeline that, we have. I mean, I think we're so obsessed with, like, let's finish the project and we have a grant timeline and all this kind of stuff. it's like if we really want to focus on telling the story in the right way, we got to make sure that we're doing it on the right timeline that works for the nation. So I think this process of negotiation, when we had our first meeting, I know it was actually a really revealing meeting, because some of the things that came up were like, like the Ho-Chunk Nation really wants to set the record straight on some things, and that might be a really uncomfortable conversation for some people to be engaged in a traveling exhibit. So how do you tell the story of like, I know we like to think that the genocide is over.
Yeah, right.
But actually, to us, sometimes it feels like the genocide is ongoing. That's not the easiest thing to just put in a panel and say, hey, local government, do you want to tell the story? That might actually make your residents feel a little uncomfortable. And that's something that I think we're trying to figure out, like, how do we tell that story in the right way? And so I think a question for Waunakee and the Ho-Chunk Nation is, do we actually want to have actual stuff that travels around, like actual artifacts from the Ho-Chunk Nation, maybe their museum, something they already have. And if we want to do that, what will that look like? How would it be displayed? How could it easily be transported to places? We don't want it to be like the most sacred thing in the world that might get broken in transit. So I think there are all these things that when you think about doing a traveling museum, you start to go, oh yeah, we need to think about that. Oh yeah, we need to think about that. Oh, and there's the content and telling the story the right way. And there's the, all this stuff. So this is a delicate process and it takes time. But we're really grateful that the Ho-Chunk Nation is willing to work with us on this. And we are willing to go with them on this journey as well. When we started this partnership, one of the first projects that Waunakee wanted to do was, how do we respectfully incorporate the Ho-Chunk Nation into our Wauna-Boom celebration, which is like a, kind of 4th of July celebration that they had. And they were thinking, we don't just want to be one of these people that invites them to do like, a little dance, cultural dance in the beginning. Right. And then it's like, oh, thank you, Ho-Chunk, for entertaining us. Now on with the festivities. Yes. They don't want to kind of rip off culture and do this kind of really bad, disrespectful.
Perform for us.
Exactly. Performative. Come and make us feel good. And let's not think at all about the bad stuff that's happened in the past.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because, that when you said about, the uncomfortable stuff, the uncomfortable conversations, I mean, those obviously need to happen. And I think that we sometimes fall into the trap of thinking, whether it's native populations or, the African-American community, it's easy for a lot of people to think, oh yeah, I remember back when there were problems, like when I remember back when, maybe those people weren't treated very well. And it's like, it's still happening now. So let's not just we don't want to gloss over that. Yeah, exactly.
So we ended up, getting in touch with some of their legislators, Sarah Lemieux, and we also got in touch with the president at the time, Marlon White Eagle. And we have a wonderful resource on campus of people who know a lot about the Ho-Chunk Nation, certainly a lot more than I know. Again, my job is to get to the right people. I don't have to know everything. So there's a woman named Jessie Conaway, who works for the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies and the Department of Planning and Landscape Architecture. She's done a lot of work with the Ho-Chunk Nation. She was part of the Native Nations Task Force that had started. And we said, Jessie, who do we need to really go to get this right? And she had suggested Bill Quackenbush, the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, Sarah Lemieux, and Marlon White Eagle. And they said, yeah, we're willing to go with you on this journey as long as you're willing to go a little deeper than just including us at your Wauna-Boom celebration. And Todd and Kylie and the whole team in Waunakee, to their credit, were like, yeah, we're willing to go with you on that journey. We're willing to open that up a little bit more. And that's where they said, what about, do you have a plan for cultural markers around the village to make sure that people can be educated? Do you have anything in your school district that educates people? Do you have anything like a general session that people can just come and learn about the Ho-Chunk Nation? And it's like, no, we don't have these things. And so they, I think, were willing, to their credit, to say, yeah, let's figure that out. And so Jessie Conaway's class really took things under their wing, and they did a deep dive into like these 8 different areas that resulted in these things that Kylie had talked about, and it's kind of hopefully a gift that keeps giving to them. But again, some of that was just planning, and now they're on to this, like, we want to do something tangible, we want to do action, and they've taken some action by adopting the land acknowledgement statement. They've taken action by including the Ho-Chunk seal on their seal of the welcome to the only Waunakee in the world sign. And now they want to be doing this traveling exhibit, because I think, a story that I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Kylie, was that I think there was some kind of basic exhibit up at the library, and yeah. So
we have a place called History Hall in our library. It's we have a curator that changes it over every few months to different exhibits. And as we had been kind of dreaming about doing this project before even starting it, the curator reached out and said she wanted to do something, but it was very, for lack of a better term, seemed very biased. She wanted to put up a teepee. She wanted to just put up some photographs. And we said, please hold. We work really closely with the nation on some of this stuff, and we wanted to get input and see what we could do, so that we made sure that what was represented in this exhibit in the village that we've been working hard to represent the Ho-Chunk Nation so appropriately was done appropriately.
Yeah, right,
and
right.
So,
this isn't a John Wayne movie.
Exactly.
This is like,
this is real people, real life.
Yeah.
So that was where we were like, okay, now's the time to take action, because we're not the only people thinking about doing an exhibit. So then we moved forward with the Wisconsin Humanities Grant, and I'll tell you, when we put that grant application in, we had no idea what we wanted to do. Yeah. It was we want to do an exhibit. We're going to work with person A, B, and C to make sure that that exhibit is up to their standards, and then we'll know what the exhibit's actually going to be about. And I think the Wisconsin Humanities Council took that in the way that we hoped, is that we're trying to do this right. Even though we don't have all the details of what we want to do, we know we want to do it right.
Thank you both for doing it. And we're just about out of time here, but I want to, first of all, thank you for the work on this, and also for being here and talking to us about it. When is this expected to open?
Fingers crossed, because I'll tell you, we've already extended our deadline once, simply because, like Gavin said, it takes
what's
time.
Your target?
Our target is to display an exhibit in Waunakee as of November 1st for Native American Heritage Month this year.
Okay, terrific. And I just want to ask one more thing. When you're not working on all this kind of stuff, what do you do for fun? Do you have hobbies, interests?
I'm super. My work is really my passion.
Okay.
Aside from having kids who play hockey that take up my entire life for 6 months out of the year, I am super involved in our creative economy committee, Create Waunakee. So that's been a lot of fun. We just launched a nonprofit, and that's been the coolest thing to work on over the last 5 years.
Wow. So Waunakee has a great resource in you then. You're doing a lot.
Waunakee's doing big things.
All right. Good deal. Excellent. And how about you, Gavin? What do you...
I feel like
do you have free time?
I don't have kids. Yeah. So therefore, I do have some hobbies and some free time. I'm a huge tennis player. I play in local tennis leagues. 4.0, 4.5 tennis player for anybody out there that knows.
Terrific. Okay,
cool, so I really like tennis. I love roller coasters. I love travel.
Nice.
And I do a fair amount of meditation, and like try to do some meditation retreats and all that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
And I'm also like, I love politics. I'm kind of a politics junkie.
Yeah.
But part of the reason why I love local government, why I love working with local government, is it's nonpartisan. You know, a lot of people, of course, we're in a very polarized society right now. But
I've noticed that.
I think we've all kind of noticed that. But one of the things I love about local government is it's not partisan politics playing out. It's people who are at your grocery store. It's like, how do we figure this out together? Right. Yeah. And you can't just vilify them for being on the right or the left or whatever. This is about bringing people together. So that's another big passion of mine, is trying to figure out, I mean, look, we're at the University of Wisconsin. We're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. That has been a contentious topic before.
Yeah.
You may remember what's going on with the legislature. And so, I'm hoping that nobody from the legislature is listening to this and be like, darn it, that Gavin working on those diversity, equity, and inclusion things.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think what I want them to hear is that we have people from communities, large and small, in red and blue areas, coming and saying, we want to make our community more welcoming.
Excellent.
And that's a message to them, because they realize that, like, wow, if our communities aren't welcoming, we won't have a workforce.
Yeah.
And if we can't tie it to that workforce issue. So anyway, that's a passion of mine, is figure out how to bridge the divide and heal the world.
Terrific. If any of these people do get over politicized about this, you can always, because you're a tennis player, you can always pull a John McEnroe and just walk up to them and say, "You cannot be serious.
You can't be serious, man. Come on." Throw down my racket.
Yeah, right. Throw your racket down,
That's
break
right.
it. Yeah,
That's right.
Man,
That's right.
that's awesome. Gavin Luter, thank you so much. Managing Director of UniverCity Alliance, and Kylie West, Executive Assistant for the Village of Waunakee. Thank you both so much. This has been really, really informative.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank you.
inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to the Badger Talks podcast. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Kylie West, Executive Assistant for the Village of Waunakee, and Gavin Luter, Managing Director at UniverCity Alliance. Please browse our previous episodes for other topics that may be of interest to you. The Badger Talks podcast is a creation of UW Connects and produced at Audio for the Arts Recording Studios in Madison, Wisconsin. Our music is composed by Julian Olson and performed by the UW Marching Band. I'm Buzz Kemper. Thank you for listening.